The following program was provided by a valued member of our local community. Rogers TV is proud to support local producers and share local voices, ideas, and opinions. For more information, please visit our website.
Welcome to this week's edition of The Paint Box. My name is Jane Roy and I want to welcome you back. This is the second in a two-parter. This is the second part of a little landscape demo that we were doing in oil. It's an exercise based on trying to simplify things. We've simplified the color. We're only working with a red, a yellow, and a blue. We've simplified the brush. We're just working with one brush, 3/4 inch flat. And we've simplified the size. We've made it quite small, 6 by 8 inch. So the whole idea is to try to think of this in terms of big shapes and some nice brushwork. So I hope you enjoy it. It's been a fun exercise so far. We continue to work on the water. We're going to put in the foreground in terms of the tree, and then we're going to tie it all together with some nice brushwork and some finishing strokes that will take your eye to the focal point. And I'm really excited to finish this up and see where it goes. So let's get going. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start working on these other colors, and these are back to sort of the peach yellow ones. I'm going to clean my brush, so we're going to start using this pile again a bit. This is my peach pile, but we're going to make it a little bit kind of close to the, that's okay, that's not a bad color. It's different from that. Okay, and again, it's okay if you don't get the right color, the exact color. Again, what we're looking for is values. And this part is lighter and a lot highlighted, a lot more highlighted. You know, I probably am going to go back and work on some of those trees because it just doesn't feel like that's not quite right, but it feels like I need some more darkness in behind it to make these ones stand out as well. But okay. And again, this is an exercise, big brush exercise. So again, if it doesn't quite work out, that's okay. You can do it again. Okay, the next layer down is, this is the band that everybody sees and where eyes are really drawn to. This is kind of that really brilliant, that really lovely green. So I want to start a new pile with that. We're going to start with the yellow as our base. And sometimes when you start, you kind of, what's the predominant color in there? And the predominant color is yellow. So even though it's green, it's got a bit of that green to it. We'll start with the yellow and we'll draw in some blue. Okay, I actually don't mind that color. Again, let's just throw a little bit of red in there because it's nice to have all the colors tied together. And here's our bank. Well, that's not bad. I don't mind that color at all. It's nice and strong. Okay. And soon, this is going to be the part that everybody sees. So I'm going to actually just paint it in, but later on, I'm going to add more paint on that, just so that the paint sits on top. I'm just blocking it in right now. So, again, you think of this in terms of front, back, or front, middle, back, or background, midground, foreground. We're also thinking of this in terms of large shapes to smaller shapes, so we're just kind of blocking, and I kind of like that right now, so that's great. Soon we'll get to some of the reflections as well, and we're going to go back to some of that green. And the thing about reflections is we are going to put the reflections of the trees in the water, and they're essentially the same distance from the bank to, like, you don't start right where the water starts. You always make sure there's that kind of similar kind of distance. Now, even though we're going to go across, but for these we're going to go down. We're just going to draw down a little bit. So there's one there. There's one here. Those are two trees there. One, two. There's a big tree here. Now, see what I did? I actually made a mistake. These two trees should have started a little bit farther away. It should have started here. That tree's a little bit closer to the bank, so the base of it starts there. That one's a little bit farther, so the base of it starts there. A little bit closer. Base is there. I'm not using a lot of paint right now. I'm just putting those reflections in. And so those trees are living a little bit. Welcome back. Actually, it turns out, I apologize. I didn't started painting and I forgot to turn the phone on. Because I thought I shouldn't say I forgot. I thought I turned the phone on, but I didn't. So I've actually progressed a little bit, and I just want to take you through a little bit in terms of what I've done. I've added some green here, so that there's a little bit of difference between the yellow, the more yellow-green of the bank. It's broken things up. And then, last week we put in the tree shadows. I've then taken the color of the grass here. Okay, so I didn't quite get it exact, but that's the color of the grass, and I made it a tad bit darker, and then I put it into the water. Okay, I sort of dragged it down, and there we go. Now that's going to turn into even more water once we actually start to do some strokes across. You'll notice from the picture that there are some, from the photo, that there's some of these nice, now whether those are lily pads or whether it's ripples from the water because there's some wind going, it doesn't matter. Again, we're not talking details, we're talking shapes and we're talking color. And it's really interesting that there's kind of this gray blue that goes across. So we'll have a look at that afterwards. The other thing I wanted to bring your eyes to is the focal point. Really liked how, part of the reason I was drawn to this photo is that I really liked how the yellow of green really drew your eye across the bank of the water, that your eye was being drawn to this area in particular. And this is going to be kind of the focal point. It's the focal point of the painting, in part, mainly, I shouldn't say in part, mainly because of the light against the dark. Our eye is really drawn to contrast, and that's going to be the thing that we bring out the most. So I want to make a really, really, really nice stroke there, and I want a really nice color. You can see it's a little bit lighter than, so I'm going to take the color of the grass. I want to add just a cleaner yellow and a cleaner white. Let's lighten it up a bit more. Okay, so that's not a bad color. Let's see what happens when I kind of just make a nice little stroke. Sometimes it's the stroke that matters. So that's not perfect, but see how it kind of sits there. That's awesome. And then I'm going to put that same color down into the water. Okay. And then going to go back to this, whatever this is on the water, whether it's algae, whether it's kind of ripples, I'm not sure what is there, but again, it's kind of really interesting. And again, shows, this is what shows this is going to be, show what be water. So it's kind of that blue. So let's get some of that blue. It's kind of a blue gray, so we got to make sure it's light. No, it's kind of not enough paint, so. Okay, so I'm going to make it a little darker towards here. A little darker still. And I made it a bit of a purple blue. I just wanted to see what it would look like. Again, it's not about getting the exact color. It's really about, yeah, I actually like that a bit better because it kind of ties into the mountains. Now, the one thing I have a really bad habit. When you work wet on wet, you're picking up paint from where you're actually already painting. I'm bringing a new color into an area that's got the green, it's got the water in it. And really what you should be doing is after you finish, before you put your paintbrush back in the paint, you should actually wipe it off because you've got sort of that color there. So I should paint, wipe, pick up more paint. Stroke down, wipe, more paint. Wipe, more paint. That will ensure that I don't make it even muddier than it already is. Okay, now it's not standing out terribly, but that's actually okay. And the other thing I've done now is I've lost a bit of that reflection, but that's okay too, because things will start being tied together a little bit more once we start putting in the foreground and the darker colors. Okay, now we're going to start working with the foreground. And you'll see what I've done is I've moved this a little bit more in case I need to move over here. This is all in shadow now. Of course, the light is coming down on the midground, which is where our focal point is. This is in shadow, and so what the main pieces are, of course, the grass, the path, and the big tree. So we're going to start here. We're just going to, obviously, we've kept working down, and we're going to do a green. So I'm going to probably stick in this pile right here. We're going to add a bit of yellow, a bit of blue. We're going to make this a little, now it's not going to be, this is not as dark as the tree, so I got to make sure that I have some room to move. I'll just put a little red in there. And let's draw some of this. I don't want it as red. Let's see, is that color not bad? That's not a bad color. Okay, so we're just going to block in this area. Okay. Now, again, we're blocking it in. And then once we've blocked in this area with this color, we're going to make it both a little darker and a little lighter so that it will create a little bit of the, well, not just the highlights, but some of the differences. So even though it's in the shadow, there's reflected light that ends up on it. And you will find that there are some darker spots than there are lighter spots. So, for instance, where's the darker spots? The darker spots in the the green, you'll notice, are right along the path. There's a little bit of a dark spot here. The other thing is that this is grass. So now that we're going to put some other, we're going to make sure we do that. We're going to have our brush strokes kind of follow along the grass as well. Then this side over here is a little warmer. It's got a little bit of brown, a little bit of, you can see the dirt kind of coming through. We're not going to care about this clump so much. We're just going to make this just the whole path. But let's make this, so we'll do a little bit lighter over here. We'll use up some of that path. It shouldn't be too much different, but it should be enough different that, yeah, there we go, that you can see. And we're just gonna do an upward motion, which just suggests grass. That's all it does. It's just grass. Just make some suggestion. Okay. Now I'm gonna make it a little darker. How do I make it a little darker? Well, you add blue and you add red in particular, a little bit more purple. And that's a little browner, but that's okay. That's a little bit more yellow then. Okay, so there's a little bit of darkness. Now remember, we didn't put black on our palette. So we got to try to get as dark as we can, which means stay away from the white. Okay, so again, this is darker even though it's a bit of a different color. That's okay. We're putting this on the edge of the path. And there's a little bit of this is a bluer clump. Let's make that a little bluer. This is a bluer clump over here. So let's just put that in. Now remember, it doesn't matter that it's blue. This will still read as green. It'll still read as dark because that's the grasses that are there. And we'll get this a bit drier. You can also dry brush it a bit. And that'll make that look like grass. So we've done the path. I did want it lighter than the grass in value, so that the grass is what kind of pops up. We will notice that it is lighter on this side. So now I'll go back with some lighter paint and put that on this side a bit. And then there's sort of pebbles. So we're just going to do a few suggestions of pebbles. Not great, but again, that's okay. It's about progress, not perfection. Okay, now we're going to work on the tree. Notice how dark it is. So we're going to start with a bit of a new pile. Let's get it's a really dark green. So this, because it's really dark, I want to make a nice pile of it. I want to start with the blue more than anything. I don't want any white in this whatsoever. Okay, so a little bit of red. Okay, now we're going to put this tree in. As I mentioned, there's the focal point. So we're going to block this in a bit. Remember, we go dark to light, so it's kind of really more important to make sure that we get the dark in. And the other part that's really dark is just right at the base of the tree. It's the path. The path actually goes into it. And this is, obviously I didn't kind of do enough green in there, but that's okay. So you can see how even when I'm going through, I am picking up paint from where I've been. That's okay. Now, see, I'm getting thicker and I'm starting to use more paint, a little bit more medium as well. This is because this fat on lean, thick on thin, this is the part that's the closest to us. So I want to make sure that it's nice and substantial. And it's nice and dark. It really draws your eye to it. Again, there's that nice dark and the nice light. Okay, so it's not a perfect tree. That's okay. Okay, let's add a bit of yellow to that. Okay, I want to go back and just get some dark in there again. We're just putting in some color. So sometimes I'm not even following the picture. You just got to make sure it makes sense. I love trees. I absolutely love trees. Okay, so the other thing I'm looking at is that obviously I need to put some green in the grass. And then I want to put some darkness so that your eyes at the base of the path, so that your eyes will follow that around. So let's just... Okay, so I've noticed I've actually gone a bit too late there when I kind of step back and look at it. So I want to just reestablish that, because they are highlighted, but it's not... I've made a rookie mistake, because I always do that. It's not that much lighter, so you just got to make sure that it's enough to make a difference, but not too much. There, you can see there, that's a little bit better. Now that's the tree. It's dark. Now we're going to just come back with some of the sky color and some of these other colors, and just cut back in, because that's the fun part to some degree, when you can actually start seeing so there's, now that's a bit lighter than the sky. That's a bit of a different color, so let's just make sure we get it in there. And then guess what? We're going to put it on the end of our brush, and we're going to come in here. Now, this is really where you got to make sure that you wipe your brush. You're kind of doing sky holes. And the idea is to try not to make them... I've run into trouble. It's very easy when you start painting is to make them exactly the same. Try to make your marks... I got some white on there. Try to make your marks a little less uniform. But sometimes it's a squish and a pull. Sometimes it's a dab. Okay, sometimes it's a bit of a triangle. And this is what's fun about this, is you get to carve out the tree a little bit. We want the focal point to be this nice bright stroke. So let's go back with a nice bright stroke. Now, obviously, I need to clean my brush. Okay, and actually it's really getting close to being finished. Not a great painting, but again, that's okay. I want to make a few little changes to it. I do want to make this a little browner. So I want to make that a little bluer, a little red rather. Because it's all kind of the same color. It's all kind of green. So let's add just a little bit of red. Okay, so let me go back to some of that algae. And there's that blue. So let's start with dark. My brush isn't very clean. So when you're doing some of the final strokes and you want a little bit purer color, it's really important that you clean your brush, which is something I am not very good at. As you can even tell here, I'm cleaned and it's still already messy. A little bit of blue. I don't mind that it's kind of yellow. It's just some nice strokes. It's also a little bit thicker, which is okay. And because that's thicker, much like the thickness that's there, I'm going to come back and actually do a bit of thickness around the algae. Make some nice little spots there. It's kind of a nice purple. So you can still see the reflections kind of cutting through it. I haven't lost all of them. There's some of them are still there. There we go. Okay, if I want to bring some of them back, just make sure it's a little darker. I said that was it, but actually, I wouldn't mind actually putting some of this green color in here a little bit if I can. I don't know if I've done too much, but that's okay. But the main thing I really want to do is have just get that nice stroke back with, clean my brush, get some of that white, get a little bit of that red, not much, and a little bit of that yellow. And just let's get a lot of that right on the tip of my brush and just put a nice stroke down. That's actually quite nice. That's a nice thick stroke. Now it's out of place a little bit from everything else, but that's okay. I'm just going to move it around a bit. Okay. Oh, see, I didn't clean my brush. There we go. Now that's sitting out there. That's what's really drawing your attention to. Now I should go in and put some more nice, let me put some more nice strokes in this nice thick paint of this yellow. So we're going to grab a bit, and there we go. Let's grab a bit more, and there we go. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to have a look at this, but I think I might actually change that. It kind of sits out there a little bit too much for me. Unless I change the whole painting and make some of those strokes kind of the same. But we'll see. This, I'm going to let this live a little bit. Actually, you know what? Having a look at it, I'm okay with that. I think the one thing I might change a little bit is make sure the sky is a bit stronger. So just hang up for a second. Let me make a much nicer sky. And again, I'm doing this and I'm actually adding more paint now because it's not just about getting rid of the paint, but you got to go thicker when you put on top. So, okay. And I'm going to leave that there because I'm going to fuss with it. So there we go. There is the finished product. That's okay. Good exercise. That was one I'd definitely do again and see what it kind of looks like at the next time. So thanks very much. Okay. That's it. Thanks very much for joining me this week. Actually, that was a fun little exercise. There's the completed painting. I definitely would do that one again. I think there's lots of things I wasn't happy with, and every painter will tell you they could do a better job next time. Knowing when to stop is really, really difficult. So sometimes when you're doing exercises, give yourself a timer, and when you're done, move on to the next time, and then potentially come back to it. I might actually come back to that painting and really like it in a week. But right now, parts of it I don't like, parts of it I do. But there we go. Enjoy. Look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for watching.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.